Going for two, kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for two, sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this, multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, DFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past any and all, I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking. So what are we talking? What kind of alignment? And running it deep, even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top end. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping. And woo, this is the armchair. Yeah, put up your arms, yeah, sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo.
What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 329 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Geoff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at JeoffLambert77. Of course, we are live on the Going for Two Live podcast network here every Wednesday night on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. If you are on Twitter, we cannot see your comments in the chat. Go find us on YouTube. It is youtube.com/@GoingForTwoLive. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Ryan Searfoss. What's up, Ryan?
Not much. Question. Who comments on Twitter during shows anyways?
Twitter used to be, back in the Periscope days when Twitter was Periscope, we used to get a ton of comments from Twitter, but nowadays you can't even do it.
Do we need to tell them anymore?
I've
been thinking about that a couple shows, but do we need to tell them anymore?
Yeah, I suppose not. I suppose not. We can skip over that. All right, that laugh you heard in the background, none other than Joe Pisapia from the FantasyPros and author of the long-running book, the Fantasy Black Book. You can follow him on Twitter at Joe Pisapia. What's up, Joe?
Hello, gentlemen. It's good to talk to you. Periscope, there's something I haven't heard in a long time.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. It's been a hot minute since that, but people will find a way to comment anywhere nowadays if they can.
It's true.
You know, it makes everybody feel strong to make a comment.
Mainly negative.
It's funny. I think there's a lot of that, but we're very lucky. I do, even though I probably shouldn't. I read more YouTube comments on all the videos of Fantasy Pros maybe than I should, and most of the time, they're pretty solid. Like, people are pretty excited. They're always gonna. You can't make everybody happy. If you're not doing your job, you're not making somebody miserable. But overall, I do think it's all about the space you create for people. If you create a good environment, a positive environment, people want to talk and have good discussions, they will. And if you create an environment where everyone's just talking crap to each other and nobody respects each other, then you're creating an environment where people are going to do the same thing on the comments. That's how I think, anyway.
Fair enough.
Love it.
All right, Joe, for those that don't know who you are, tell us about yourself.
You're lucky. Congratulations. You somehow avoided me all these years. I am the host of the Fantasy Pros podcast. I'm also the host of the Betting Pros podcast over our sister or brother. I don't know what the gender is of our other channel there, but it doesn't matter. All that matters is we're talking betting on there. I'm also the host of Sports Grizz Fantasy Sports Today every Sunday on the television screen. You can watch it on Amazon Prime and a lot of other streaming networks. And also the Black Book is now available for purchase on Amazon. It's always the #1 fantasy guide every summer. It's a great group of people. Derek Brown, Andrew Erickson, Thor Nystrom, Scott Bogman. I mean, you name it. We've got like the host of incredible contributors to the book, and very excited that's out there for purchase. We always get that up there early, but we also update it as the season goes on, which is something a lot of other folks can't do because we're direct to consumer. So when Dalvin Cook signs, we'll have an update. When Hopkins signs, we'll have an update. You get the cheat sheets, you're going to get updated on that. So it's not going to be something that was done in June that is not going to be relevant. And that's the nice thing about the Black Book. But that's enough places to find me. I think that's pretty good, don't you think?
Yeah, and Jamie's wanting you to make sure you plug your ring.
In This Ring is a good show. Just dropped a new one actually today. So that's what I do for fun. Yeah, that's my spare time. I do a wrestling podcast because I don't do enough podcasts and TV shows and things like that. So it's nice to just talk a little wrestling. So that's out there too. Jamie's a good person. Let me tell you, Jamie's good people.
Good stuff. All right, guys. Today's show, as always, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Check out their spa leagues, huge tournaments, private leagues, pick'ems. They now have a Scott Fishbowl satellite that you can now go for $5. You can join that. And this year you can max entry, and that's you can do up to 150 lineups. Last year you could not do that, so go check that out. Use our promo code GF2 when you do, and you get a deposit match up to $100. It's as simple as that. Sign up, use promo code GF2, and start drafting. Got a great show tonight, guys. We're going to do some breakout or fake outs, a little fact or cap, and then we're going to answer a bunch of listener questions. But first things first, we'll kick it off with our nonsense draft.
Attention, everyone. Let's mock draft.
All right, today we are drafting the best cartoon villains, and Jamie's in the chat, and he kind of gave me this idea because on another show we're doing a few weeks from now, we're drafting just best villains in general. This one we're going to do cartoon villains, and as always, the guest gets to go first. Joe, so you got the 101 here.
I love this. Best villains would be a fun one too. Let me tell you that there's some definitely good contenders. I'm just finishing watching Succession. The whole show is nothing but villains. I love it.
Nice.
Everyone's awful. The 1-1 villain for cartoons has got to be the one, the only Eric Cartman. I mean, he is
Nice.
He's without a doubt. I mean, this is a kid who fed another kid's parents to him. This is a kid who stopped peace in the Middle East. If you remember that episode, this is a kid who, really is racist, is sexist, is completely self-absorbed. To me, Eric Cartman is the greatest villain of all time. I love him. He's hilarious. He's awful. And I think that that's just the way to go. I mean, you got to go with Eric Cartman, and he's been doing it all these years. It's a good 20 plus years now of Eric Cartman getting the job done in terms of villainry, and he gets a little bit meaner, I feel like, every year, which is also fantastic.
That is the greatest answer. That literally was not on my list.
I didn't expect that. That's great.
That is perfect. And
I'm just thinking about when Heath made letters think that the world ended, and he was in like a nuclear holocaust.
Just the things that he's done to Butters alone over the years is unbelievable.
Gave Stan AIDS.
My youngest daughter, I'm letting her start to watch some of the episodes. We're getting ready for school. She'll be sitting there having breakfast, and we'll watch some together. There's some I still can't let her watch because they're so awful.
Right.
But just watching them back, going, I can't believe he's doing this. I can't believe this. But the opportunisticness, the selfishness, the completely self-absorption, and the lack of care for everybody else in the world but him. I mean, to me, he's the ultimate. He's the 1-1 villain.
That's perfect. That is the perfect answer. All right, so I got the 102 here. It's really hard to follow that 101 there, but I'm going to go with the guy who is an 80s cartoon. I know me and Joe go back that far, probably not Ryan. He's part of a lot of memes. Ryan probably knows him better from the memes than anything else, and that's Skeletor from He-Man. He would have been my 101, but I didn't even think about Cartman. But yeah, I think Skeletor is obviously a great 80s cartoon. They tried making it in a movie a couple times with limited success, but overall that cartoon was great back in the day. So I'll go with Skeletor as my 102. Ryan, what you got for yours?
Mark Hamill's Joker from Batman the Animated Series. I mean, I'm gonna say he's the most iconic Joker ever. He was the best. He's lived that long. Everything about him was iconic, from cartoons, the movies, video games. He was the best.
Yeah, that's a great option. He was on my list as well. Great choice. All right, Joe, back to you here at the 104.
At the 104, obviously Skeletor was on my queue, so he's out now, unfortunately. But you got to go with the great 80s villain. Also, he was so goofy. Speaking of the goofy ones, too, I'm going to go back in the Wayback Machine a little bit. It's a Disney one. He is kind of foppish and weird and uncomfortable. It's Prince John from the Robin Hood movie, which I was always a big fan of that movie as a kid. I always felt like that was really one, but he was just very, he was really like this, and he had the big jewels, and by the end of it, people don't realize how dark it was. Like, he's just straight up trying to shoot arrows through Robin Hood. He's trying to kill him all the time. Like, it is really like he's abusing the snake, his little henchman guy. He's completely he is hardcore evil, but he's also really sort of foppish and weird and uncomfortable too. And I always felt like there's something wrong with that guy, something really wrong. So Prince John from the original Robin Hood Disney movie. That's a good one. I like him. He's on the list.
Another one that's not on my list here, Joe. You are killing this right now. You are absolutely.
I'm trying to be different. I thought long and hard about this afternoon.
Probably did more research on this than you did on the actual fantasy stuff.
Oh, you mean we're doing football? I thought this was it today. I didn't even know. I thought this was all we were talking about.
All right, so I'm sticking with the theme here, going with 80s cartoons that I watched growing up, and this one sort of falls into that sort of, is he really a villain or is he just misunderstood? And that's Gargamel from the Smurfs.
Oh, yes.
Azrael, of course. Gargamel always chasing the Smurfs around. Again, another one they tried making movies out of that I think had limited success, but the cartoon was great. My daughter actually, when she was younger, kind of got into it a little bit as well. So I saw some episodes as I got older, but I love me some Gargamel. And the name is great too. Gargamel just sounds like a villain. All right, Ryan, you got the 105.
You can tell I'm just one generation behind you guys here.
Yeah.
I'm going with the villain who was just there all of my childhood, my favorite cartoon ever, and that was Super Shredder. I mean, going after the Turtles week after week.
Yeah.
His appearance, live action, especially in the cartoons, man. He was a little silly. He had these crazy ideas and tried to mutate all these animals. Love Shredder.
Yeah, that's a great one. I had Shredder on my list as well. Definitely a good choice.
I almost went Krang because he's super goofy, but
yeah,
I stuck with Shredder because he was like the iconic one.
Yeah, 100% agree. And that was late 80s, early 90s. I think that cartoon came out.
Something like that.
Yeah. All right, Joe, your last pick here. You're 107.
That was a good one too, by the way. Gargamel also was on my list.
87,
got the cool outfit. Yeah, it was late 80s, definitely in there. Gargamel's a good one too, because Gargamel is just so weird. Like, why does he hate the Smurfs so much? You know, like these little innocuous things. And every day he gets up with a new plot to kill Smurfs and cook Smurfs. Like, there's something really wrong with that guy. I always feel like there's, something's off there. I'm gonna go also to the childhood. This is a little bit more early 90s-ish, though, I believe. Which is, I'm going to go to the X-Men cartoon, which is a quality old school cartoon.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go with Magneto from that one.
Yes.
Good stuff there. That is a good cartoon villain. There's a little bit of depth there that you have. So that's my team. That's who I'm going to roll with here.
Yeah, that's a great one because that's like one of those villains where he's like sort of teeters on is he a villain or just a misunderstood hero sort of? He has a little bit more depth than most villains do. So yeah, I definitely like that one. Great choice. All right, I'm going to end a little bit on a goofy one. This is this one probably goes back before the 80s. I know it was big in the 80s, but it also probably goes back into the 70s, before my time. But Mr. Wile E. Coyote, always trying to catch the Roadrunner with his was it AMC, that the bombs and the traps and everything else that he's got. All these, there's no talking in the whole cartoon, but it's always been hilarious. So I'm going with the Wile E. Coyote here at my last pick at the 108. Ryan, closes out.
I'm taking Destro from G.I. Joe. I know the popular answer is Cobra Commander, though, but Destro always had that crazy metal mask.
Yes.
He always came up with these cockamamie ideas that never worked and just kind of got bullied. It always was just pure failure.
Did he even have the cockamamie ideas? Like, I feel like Destro was actually the one who's like, why don't we do this or whatever? He's one of my bald friends. We all hang out together. We have a group. But like, if you think about it, like Cobra Commander's like, shut up, we're going to do this. And it never worked.
Yeah.
Like, I love Cobra Commander. I was a giant G.I. Joe fan as a kid, but you're 100% right. Like, Destro's kind of the guy who's like the unlikely voice of reason. Like, wouldn't it be a good plan if we just do this? You're like, no, shut up. I've got this whole other crazy crap planned. And then
he's like,
let's kill him now. No, let's just torture him till
right. It's like that Austin Powers thing with number 2.
Number 2, yeah.
Like, exactly. No, we're just gonna wait for a slow dipping mechanism. It'll be fine. He'll take care of himself. Really, it's gonna be fine.
Yeah, great option. A couple of honorable mentions that I had that we didn't get to. Megatron was on my list.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then I had one that's a little bit more of a sleeper if you watched the Thundercat cartoon, but Mum-Ra.
Yeah,
one of my characters as well. What about you, Joe? You got any that?
No, those were also on my list. I was trying to go off the beaten path a little bit.
Yeah,
because I figured I saw the ones that were so off, up there all the time, and you had a good one. Ryan had a good one too with the Mark Hamill Joker. That's an all-time great one too. So it's a good list. I think we should be proud of it.
Good stuff. All right, let's get to some football stuff now. If I can find my drop here. I'm a professional, I promise.
That's all right.
News and notes from around the league.
All right. So there's not a whole lot of news really to go over. I kind of had reached for a couple of these, but first one here, Cade Otton standing out in spring training for Tampa Bay. We're always looking for that next, Travis Kelce, that next Mark Andrews, that next athletic tight end. And we get all excited in the offseason. Then we realize that there's only 2 or 3 of those guys ever in the league at any one time. But Cade Otton is on that list of potentials. What is your thoughts on Cade Otton, and what do you think of this news, Joe?
Well, it's nice to hear nice things for Cade Otton, but I can't get excited about Cade Otton in fantasy. I can't get excited about bad quarterbacks and bad offenses that, don't really move the needle. And Cade Otton unfortunately finds himself in one of those in Tampa. So, look, is he a guy in those deeper leagues or those 2 tight end league situations or tight end premiums? I don't even know if you can get there. I mean, last year he had 65 targets with, the greatest quarterback that ever lived throwing the football. And now, he's got Baker Mayfield. So it's a big drop off. So I can't really expect him to do all that much. I am that just generally out on Tampa Bay. Like, it's just not a team and an offense that I'm really gravitating towards. They had a lot of issues last year. A lot of things just did not look like they were on the same page. So I'm just not optimistic about it. So I'm glad that Otton's getting good news. I mean, he certainly flashed some moments at some times last year, but I don't think he's a fantasy asset, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. And I think with that offensive line, I think Otton is an above average, if not good blocker. He's going to be doing that a lot in that offense because they just can't block anybody. What are your thoughts on Cade Otton, Ryan?
I mean, we're talking about possibly the 4th or 5th option on a bad football team.
What a bad
I mean, Mike Evans, Godwin. We expect Rashad White to be involved in the passing game. Russell Gage. So, dude, where is he getting the opportunities and quality opportunities? And the touchdown upside with them having just a terrible line. It's just, this is not like, and Baker.
Yeah.
Who underutilized David Njoku for, 5 years, 4 years, something like that.
Yep. Yeah. Good call. And yeah, I agree too that I think this is just one of those camp news and, he's looking good, but he's just not fantasy relevant in my opinion. This next one here is one of those, sort of ones you really can't put a whole lot of stock into because, who knows what's going to happen when the season starts. But Kenneth Walker expected to see 17 touches per game, which is about what he averaged last year. Everyone's thinking that Charbonnet is going to cut into his workload. Ryan, what do you think of this news? First of all, you think he still gets 17 touches per game? And if he does, is he still in that sort of top 15-ish, 17-ish running back for you?
I mean, I've been saying he was going to be getting the majority of the carries still this whole offseason before we heard this because he's the better running back. And he doesn't need much more than 17 touches because it's big playability. I said last year they ran the ball 423 times. If we see an uptick in that, which them drafting a second quality running back tells me, 17 is definitely in the realm of possibilities. And I believe that.
Yeah. What about you, Joe? What are your thoughts on Kenneth Walker and this Charbonnet?
I struggle with Walker. I do because, the ADP is decent enough that you've got to believe that 17 touches is true. Zach Charbonnet getting drafted there, where he got drafted by them is, and I understand they don't have the greatest depth right now in Seattle, so they needed some more depth, but they didn't just draft a guy for depth. They drafted a guy that could theoretically be a better all-purpose back than Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker did, come on, have a couple good games last year. Kenneth Walker also had some games that were tougher. He struggled against the better defenses like San Francisco down the stretch. That was a rough game for him. Struggled with some injuries too. So it's a tough spot because right now he's going in between Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, Kenneth Walker, Jahmyr Gibbs, right? And I'm looking at that group. He is by far the 4th one. And if you want to throw J.K. Dobbins in that mix too, he's the 5th one for me. So, Kenneth Walker, I would take after all of those guys. So where he's going at ADP, just to me, isn't a discount enough considering Charbonnet's presence. That's what concerns me. And Charbonnet's a better pass catcher, and that's something that could eventually come up too. So all these news and notes and these things and these, beat writers who come on, they got to write something every day. That's their job. So they're going to take any bit of news they get or anything that they can possibly project or talk about and put it out there. But that doesn't make it true, especially in June. And I think that's something everybody needs to remember. And I think more importantly, if you look at the ADP, it's really hard to justify. I just can't put him above all of those guys in that grouping. Therefore, I'll probably have very few shares of Walker in 2023.
Yeah, good call. I think Walker for me, where you're saying he's being drafted now, probably is a little bit too high. But if we start getting news that Zach Charbonnet looks good in camp and Zach Charbonnet this and Walker drops a little bit more, I think he is a good value. I think both running backs could have potential value in this offense. So if he can drop a few more spots in ADP, I might be interested in him. Let's wrap it up with the quarterback news and it's sort of combined together. And it's not the quarterback necessarily, but more so the pieces around the quarterback that we're worried about. 2 pieces of news that Brock Purdy is headed to Jacksonville to throw for a couple of weeks. And then the other news is Sam Darnold reportedly has the edge over Trey Lance. Take those in stride there, Joe. What stands out here with these 3 quarterbacks?
Oh, the 3 quarterbacks. Well, this is a point too where I wonder if Kyle Shanahan is, getting too smart for his own good, where he's just like, it doesn't matter. I can win with anything. Can you win with Sam Darnold? I don't know. We might find out. I have a sneaking feeling, and I write up the quarterbacks every year for the Black Book. And it just feels to me like it would not be shocking to see Sam Darnold be the week 1 starter for the 49ers. I know everyone thinks I'm crazy, but I just think that could be a real possibility where they just feel more comfortable with him running that offense. And this is a very win now team. And if they think Darnold is going to give them a better chance to run this offense, and they think that Trey Lance is still struggling in certain areas, then that's what they're going to do. I think Purdy's the guy they want to play. Whether or not he's healthy, we just don't know yet. And I think that's going to be the biggest question mark, is how far along is he going to be in July, in August? Training camp doesn't matter a whole lot for a lot of people. It matters for Brock Purdy. It matters for the 49ers. It's one of those situations that this is really important to monitor. And Purdy played well enough for a long enough period of time where I think you can buy into him and what he did in Superflex formats. But at the same time, I think there's enough tape on him now where the rest of the league can make adjustments. And I know Kyle Shanahan can win with Jimmy Garoppolo. I know he's, won with everybody, and that's what he goes out there and does, and won with Brock Purdy last year. But at a certain point, sometimes that luck runs out a little bit. And I think some coaches start to get a little too big for their britches. And I do have concerns about that 49ers offense. I still think they're going to win that division. But at the same time, I do believe this is one of those situations where you really got to monitor, and you got to be careful about your investments too. Kittle, I think, is still a good investment at his current ADP. Ayuk is okay. Debo is not good enough for me in terms of a discount that I'm getting right now. So it's going to be interesting to see. But Purdy's the guy that they want. It's just going to take a little bit longer than I think people realize. And I don't think he is going to be the week 1 starter. I really don't.
It's funny you say that, because when they first went and got Darnold, I'm a Niners fan, and somebody asked me about it. And at that time, I wouldn't be surprised if Darnold was the week 1 starter. And I said that because we almost never have a quote unquote decent third string guy. They've always kind of just thrown out any guy that, Josh Johnson, who's been around forever, was our third stringer, and CJ Beathard, guys that really, they went out and got Sam Darnold to be the third quarterback in this team for a reason. And I think the potential is definitely there. If Trey Lance struggles in preseason and Brock Purdy's not ready, I could see Sam Darnold being the starter in week 1. As scary as that sounds to Niners fans, but it is definitely a possibility. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this situation with the quarterbacks?
I mean, if this is the rumor, doesn't that tell you they're out on Lance? And like that offense is just not, they don't want to change that offense because of his completely different skill set. From just an outside perspective, Trey Lance is a whole change from Brock Purdy, what he does. And it's a completely different game to get to play that offense for. So it means either they expect Purdy back sooner than we should, we think, and they just want Darnold to hold a place in that offense, or they're out of Lance completely. It's one of those two options.
Yeah, and the other thing with Lance too, that news came out a few weeks ago that he's working with the quarterbacks coach to shorten his release, which in this offense is very important because it's very timing oriented, and having a long release is an issue. So if they're working with him to shorten his release, then that means they're probably not ready for him to start the season. So that's all concerning for me. So I agree with both of you on that front. All right, let's get into some breakout or fake out.
Breakout or fake out?
All right, I asked these guys to bring me a couple guys that they like for breakouts this season, and a couple guys that the community likes to break out, but they're not so high on. Joe, we'll go to you first. Give me one of your breakouts.
I got 3 of them. One of them is Quentin Johnson of the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm a fan. I love what he did at TCU last year. I think he's got that, that special gear in him, that playmaking ability. And he reminds me a lot of what Mike Williams could have been in the NFL if Mike Williams could ever stay on the field. Problem is Mike Williams never stays on the field, not long enough to make any real contribution. And at a certain point now, I think even the Chargers have gotten wise to this scenario. And they said, okay, let's try to get that same thing, but in a guy who is younger and more likely to be durable and actually play. And considering Keenan Allen's health last year, who I am back in on this year, because when he was on the field, he was exceptionally good. Mike Williams, I'm totally out on. And instead, I'm just going to draft Quentin Johnson late. And I think at the end of the day, Johnson's probably going to outscore Mike Williams, and the ADP return on investment is going to be much better. So for me, this is an offense that wants to throw the football. This is an offense that I think Quentin Johnson fits in very well. And at the end of the day, I think he's got some touchdown upside too, because that's always that one thing that, has been that troll in Keenan Allen's career off and on throughout, that he's not really a big touchdown guy. I think Quentin Johnson really fits that because he does have that playmaking ability. He's got a little bit more size to him. So Johnson, to me, is one of those guys that I think is going to be a real nice player in the NFL.
Nice. I like that call. Ryan, what you got for your breakout?
I think Drake London takes that next step to flirt with the wide receiver one area. Through the last 5 games, he averaged 9.6 targets a game, 71 yards a game, with a lot of inconsistencies around him. And it looks like they're kind of solidifying that offense. That improved running game should help keep some coverages off his way. He was also had 15 red zone targets for 18th in the league last year when he wasn't playing a ton of snaps early. There's a lot to like with touchdown upside and just the sheer volume he got last year.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. All right, I'm going to go with a guy who changed teams. This is going into his 3rd season. He fell out of favor after having a good rookie season, kind of got replaced a little bit by another rookie and had some bad quarterback play along the way. Elijah Moore gets a new start with Cleveland. Deshaun Watson is there, which we hope, can sort of make a return from his terrible season last year. And, that offense is run first, but I think Elijah Moore fits the skill sets that Deshaun Watson likes. You look at his career, he's had those guys that are sort of the threats deep. I know he's got Amari Cooper there. Cooper's a great route runner. I think Elijah Moore adds a different dimension that Watson can take advantage of. And I think Elijah Moore, with the fresh start here, is going to have a good 3rd season in the NFL. So he's my breakout choice here.
He was one of mine as well. So I'm just going to piggyback on top of what you were saying there, because to me, everybody was super excited about Elijah Moore last year, and then Zach Wilson happened. So that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be excited about Elijah Moore anymore. In fact, it means we should be very excited, because you look at the fact that this backfield really doesn't have that pass catcher running back in there. So those targets are going to go somewhere. And I know everybody loves David Njoku, but if Elijah Moore is going to be working out of the slot primarily, to me, this is a great situation. This is the best quarterback he's ever played with his career. There's an opening there for targets. Donovan Peoples-Jones is on his final year of his contract. He could even get traded at some point, possibly, if things really don't click for him right away. I could see them just moving on because they've got depth. They drafted Cedric Tillman, who I think could have a really good NFL career potentially. I think he landed in the right spot if Watson can rebound. So Elijah Moore, as a guy I'm taking everywhere, he's going way too late. Wide receiver 48, 49. It's absurd considering some of the guys he's around there with. Talent so much better, opportunity so much better, potential. I guess they'll say potential quarterback play because you got to see Watson rebound. Elijah Moore was number 2 on my list.
Nice. Yeah, and going back to the Njoku thing, I know it's a different offense, whole different team, but when Watson played in Houston, he didn't throw much to the tight ends there. There was never a relevant fancy tight end.
Yeah, they were more like red zone look kind of guys where he would look for some of those guys, for a touchdown. But also, sometimes you can't always carry over those things like what a guy did in a certain offense, because that's also how certain teams were built for certain coaches, So sometimes I feel like, Jeff, that gets played to death a little bit. You look at the talent, you look at the guy, you look at the explosiveness. Look at some of the games that Elijah Moore had with Mike White. Look at some of them, with Josh Johnson. Some of the reject quarterbacks that he had some splash games with. It just tells you how bad Zach Wilson is and was. And they were just dreadful last year. So I would want out of there too if I was him. Whether Aaron Rodgers was coming or not, it's a good landing spot for Elijah Moore and a ridiculous ADP right now. And I feel like you, me, and a lot of people talking about it, we're going to talk people into him, and that ADP is going to rise, which sucks. But you got to take advantage of it as long as it lasts.
Absolutely. Ryan, what you got? Give me another breakout.
Another breakout. Sorry. I'm going Jordan Addison. We're for the rookie wide receivers this year. What we're seeing from that offense last year, it's gone through 2 receivers in the tight end, and really that's it. And he should fill right into that slot role for Adam Thielen. I know their games are a little bit different, but he is a polished route runner. He has the ability to get open. He can spread the field a little bit down the middle, and he's never going to see an ounce of double coverage because Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in the league. He could have a sneaky, very, very good season this year, probably, and possibly the best out of any rookie receiver.
Yeah, he should step into just about 100 targets in that offense if things break his way. I like Addison a lot this year as well. I'll give another breakout, and then we'll get one more from you, Joe, and then we'll go to our fake outs here. But I'm going to go deep for my last breakout here. And this is a guy I've been drafting a lot in my Scott Fishbowl mocks right now. I think he could get some volume. We've seen some volume in this offense before from a guy like his stature. It's a powerful offense. And the guy that we got hyped up last year kind of fell flat on his face. But I'm talking about Khalil Shakir for the Buffalo Bills. Gabe Davis, didn't really do what we hoped he would do last year. Kind of fell out of favor a little bit. Shakir steps into that slot role where we saw Cole Beasley have some success for a few years there. I know it's a different offense. The coaches have, kind of moved on from that. But in that slot role in the offense that's going to pass the ball a ton, I think he can get the volume to be a PPR monster. I think he's 5'9", 185. He's one of the small guys, but in the NFL now, that's not as important as it used to be. You can win with that size if you can get separation, and I think Josh Allen will take advantage of that. And Isaiah McKenzie, who was his main competition in that slot, is no longer there, and Jamison Crowder is also no longer there, so he should get that full slot role. So he is my other breakout. Joe, give you one last breakout.
Yeah, I like the Shakir one too. As long as Dalton Kincaid doesn't soak up too many of the slot targets, I think Shakir could certainly work his way in there. The other one for me is Isaiah Pacheco. And I know that Jerick McKinnon came back, and I get that. And I know everyone's really hung up on that. But sometimes you got to trust what your eyes see. And as the season went on, the thing about Pacheco is he's a really tough kid. Like, he is not afraid of contact. You started to see him catch the ball a little bit, got more comfortable as the season went on, and even into the playoffs. You saw in big spots in the playoffs him gain the trust of not just Mahomes, but Andy Reid. And I think when you're talking about, wanting to get players and, big time offenses, so you get a share of that. He doesn't have to be the workhorse, of a Christian McCaffrey or those guys. Like, he doesn't have to have that kind of workload. He doesn't have to have that sort of ability or talent. He's in a great offense. So if he could just be productive and efficient in that offense, he could still be a really good fantasy get. And, right now he's not even being drafted as an RB2. He's a flex RB at RB27 in half PPR and Fantasy Pros. So, when you look at some of the people that he's going around, I mean, he's healthier than Javonte Williams right now. He's got a clearer path to touches, I think, than Brian Robinson. He's got a clearer week one starter potential as opposed to Alvin Kamara, because we have no idea what's going on with him. So it's also, DeAndre Swift, is he ever going to stay on the field? Like, you look at the guys in that range. I look at Pacheco sitting there on the Kansas City Chiefs, and, maybe I'm a little biased. He's a Rutgers kid, so I got to see a lot of him, as a local kid in Jersey where I live. And, he's a great story. He's a really good kid, really tough kid. He had a great combine 2 years ago, and I was not surprised when the Chiefs drafted him, and I was not surprised to see him eventually take over. And he's one of those guys I pumped up a lot last year. And I think this year he could be one of those breakout guys because he's in the right offense to do it. And CEH has done nothing, and Jerick McKinnon's another year older.
Yeah, that's a good call. And I think a lot of times, too, people don't realize because they see that, the speed that he had. I forget what he ran, 4.240.
He's so fast, but he's also he does not, he will run into people. Like, he does not care. He thinks he's Marshawn Lynch sometimes, which is hilarious because he's not. He's a little guy by comparison, but he's very physical for a smaller runner. I don't know how much they want him to do of that, but it was also starting to see him catch the ball in the backfield a little bit that I think was very important, especially, when you're in those big playoff games and you come through and you have good moments. That's a huge confidence builder for the coaching staff in that kid, and I think this year he'll be rewarded for that.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, he's 5'10", 216, so he's not your typical fast running back. He's not your Devin A. Chains. He's definitely a big guy for the size that he is and as fast as he is. So I like Pacheco as well. All right, let's get some fake outs, Ryan. What you got for a fake out?
I just want to reiterate that this is for redraft only because I know the dynasty community is about to get mad, but it's only for this year, and it's Dalton Kincaid. He is going his redraft tight end 11 right now, and I know he's awesome. They took the high draft pick on him. Dawson Knox is still a good tight end and still valuable in the red zone. They have an improved rushing game in the red zone. I just don't know how he has enough in that specific offense at this time to really have an instant impact in fantasy. There's a lot of guys after him who I'd much rather take a chance of, whether it be Dalton Schultz, where he's the only real target in Houston, going 2 or 3 spots later. It's just, man, it's high.
That is.
And rookie tight ends really don't see it that much. We saw the one season out of Pitts, but he was literally their only target there on a bad football team.
Yeah, I'm with you. The rookie tight end thing is tough because even some of the top tight ends, the Travis Kelce's, they even struggled their rookie season. So to put this on this kid, I know tight end 1 in fantasy is not that hard to get to. Catch like 6 touchdowns and get 50 yards a game, something like that, and you're a tight end one. But it's tough to put that on a rookie tight end in his first season. Long term dynasty, I love him, but yeah, for this year, I'm not so sure I like him that much. What about you, Joe? Give me a fake out.
I got a couple here. You want one, or you want to do a couple at once? Go ahead and
give me a couple of them. So yes,
I'll give you a couple at once. The Kincaid one's interesting. Right now, his ADP is tight end 13, and I know what Ryan's saying. Like it's a little salty. I think it's fine to take a shot on him and then a shot on Chig or somebody else like that.
I was looking at full PPR.
In full PPR, yeah. Like I agree, that's too high. Even in full PPR, the one thing is if you watch him preseason, he starts lining up in the slot a lot. That's going to change my tune about that ADP. That ADP might be good then, because they really don't, like you said before. Gabe Davis hasn't stepped up. Shakir's interesting but unproven. They moved up to take Kincaid. Yeah. And whenever you use draft capital, it's something I always say to people: follow the money. Follow the draft capital. It tells you everything they have planned for these guys most of the time. For me, Treylon Burks is one. I know everyone's getting excited about him. I don't even get excited about anybody in that offense, really, because it's not an offense that wants to throw the football to begin with. Ryan Tannehill is throwing the football for now, still, maybe. And then I don't know when that is going to bust out and be bad again. That one doesn't make much sense to me. I know a lot of, and it's just that it's not a knock on Treylon Burks so much as it's just a bad offensive situation. So once again, if I'm looking to make an investment in a player, I'm not trying to do it in a player that I think is going to, have bad quarterback play in a substandard offense, is not going to move the football or want to throw the football as much as they do. He's going around. This is a whole dead zone for me of wide receiver. Treylon Burks is in that. I love Jackson Smith and Jigma, the player, but Tyler Lockett's still there. Tyler Lockett's getting paid. They have their sights set on the playoffs. He is still the third guy. So, you have to remember that no matter how much excited you are, barring an injury in 2023, not dynasty, but in 2023 redraft, you got to pump the brakes a little bit with him. And the other guy too to pump the brakes with, I think, is Miles Sanders, where I know everyone's excited. Well, he's at the old OC. It's a good situation potentially, but I feel like it's end up going to be kind of messy at the end of the day. You got Chuba still there. You got other bodies still there. And I don't think it's just a clear-cut thing where Miles Sanders all of a sudden just goes off and becomes this great RB1 fantasy kind of guy in that offense with a rookie quarterback. I just don't see it happening.
All right, good stuff. I'm going to give
go ahead. I wanted to piggyback. You mentioned about Tyler Lockett. I'm trying to remember the stat I just saw the other day. In the last 5 years, he's like top 5 scoring in touchdowns for wide receiver position.
Every year. Dude, I'm taking
everywhere this year. Slept on.
I got him in every best ball league this year already. And look, if he gets hurt this year and it happens, fine. But the dude's just productive every single season. He people were saying, well, is he going to jive with Gino? Well, he did. Clearly, there was no problems there. And it was very specific. If there's man coverage, it was a DK week. And if it was zone coverage, you knew it was Tyler Lockett all day. It was very easy to kind of set your DFS watch to that last season. You could probably do it again this year. And it's not a knock on JSN. JSN's a really intriguing talent. But the thing about JSN that I think people forget about, it's easy to be great when you have Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson playing around you, and then you have Marvin Harrison Jr. playing around you, and all these other guys. Like, he has played with extraordinary wide receiver talent around him, and he's going to find himself in that same spot right now. But I just don't know if there's enough balls to go around for him in 2023 to make him a fantasy asset without an injury.
Yeah, good call. All right, so my fake out is going to be similar to Joe in the sense that I'm going to group a bunch of guys together, but they're all on the same team, and I'm just going to go with Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers. All of them. Just, pick your poison.
I'm poisoning myself, Jeff. Every draft, once it gets late and I hate everybody, I just start taking Sky Moore and I start taking Rashee Rice. I just start taking them because I'm like, maybe I'll get lucky and I'll hit the right one in one of these drafts. I don't know, but I'm the worst about that.
Yeah, and I think in best ball, it's probably good because I think it's going to be, it's going to be flavor of the week.
Randomly.
Yeah, it's going to be Kadarius Toney one week. It's going to be Sky Moore.
I always end up with MVS, and I don't know why. Every time.
MVS is the cheapest one, so
that's why. Yeah, every single time.
Right, and it'll end up being Justin Ross, and we'll all be wrong.
Yep. Good call. All right, so that was breakout or fake out. Let's do. We haven't done this one in a while. We'll do a little bit of factor cap.
And now it's fact or cap.
All right, for the old guys in the room, cap means false or not true. I always got to give that caveat to the guys that don't know what that means. I know it's
And that's me for every single week when we do it, so I can remember.
Yeah, it's a TikTok thing that I stole, but yeah, factor cap. All right, I'm gonna go this first one here to you, Joe, because I already kind of know where Ryan stands in this one. But George Pickens scores more points in 2023 than Deontay Johnson. Factor cap.
I think it's cap. The only way this could happen is if Pickens really has a big touchdown year. Like if he has double-digit touch, like he has 10 or 12 touchdowns, something ridiculous. But that would mean Kenny Pickett would have to take a really big step forward. And I like some of the things I saw that Kenny Pickett, last year. I know all the numbers don't bear it out, but if you watched him play, it felt like he got more confident as the year went on. And I thought he, made some plays and had some moments there where I think you can be encouraged that he could get better and build on that. But the problem is, the identity of this team is going to be play defense, run the football. And that's what they're going to do. So Pickens is going to have to score a lot of touchdowns to do that. And Deontay Johnson, I imagine, is still going to be the peppered with targets guy because they're paying him for that. And once you're paying the guy for that, you got to throw him the football because otherwise, what's that investment worth to you? So even in standard leagues, I don't see that happening, but I don't think either of these guys and I like Pickens as a talent. I loved him coming into the league. I loved him last year as a late dart throw, and I had some shares. But I don't know. It's hard to get excited about, again, the passing attack in Pittsburgh. It's not something that I'm, running out to go acquire as much as I can in fantasy.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the reason I chose this one is because right now Pickens is being drafted over Deontay Johnson, despite Johnson getting 147 targets last year. He just didn't score any touchdowns. That's gotta change, right? It's got to change. So I'm with you as well. I think it is cap. I think it's Deontay Johnson this year that's going to score more. Now, if we're talking dynasty, I want Pickens over Johnson because after this year, I don't know where Johnson ends up. But Pickens, I think this year, it'll be just a little bit behind Johnson in points. All right, Ryan, going to you with this one. This is a listener submission. Sam Laporta will outscore fellow rookie tight end Dalton Kincaid in 2023. And you just kind of had him as a fake out here. So I'm curious.
Now you got to put your money where your mouth is, Ryan. And now you got to say, let's go.
I'm going to say it's fact. I like the offense a lot in Detroit. I obviously love Buffalo's too, but they got that huge target monster. I think Dawson Knox is still an issue there. I think Laporta has a chance to get more targets because it's kind of still only Amon-Ra. We saw Hawkinson have a role there before he left. I know we all think it got so much better in Minnesota, but he still had a good amount of tight end targets there. James Williams still out, so there's targets to be had in Detroit where there's not as much in Buffalo.
Yeah, I like it. And Goff has a history of making tight ends relevant, and he had Higbee there for a little while, so I like it. All right, Joe, in one QB leagues, a wide receiver, not a running back, should go 101. And I asked this question because Underdog ADP has Jefferson, Chase, and Tyreek Hill as 1, 2, and 3. I know it's best ball, a little bit different, but it's similar. So what are your thoughts here?
Well, they've almost got it right. Especially, this is the loaded question to ask me. This is the guy who was telling everybody to take Justin Jefferson 1-1 last year, and everyone thought I was crazy. They don't think I'm crazy anymore, do they? Like, what are you can't do that. I'm like, yeah, I can. Watch me. I do it everywhere. Unfortunately, that very last week, it kind of crapped out. But you know what? Got to a lot of championships and still won a couple anyway. Yes, Chase and Jefferson are still my 1-2 players. I would not put Tyreek Hill up there yet. I don't think that's a wise idea, especially with some of this off the field stuff now that's going on. You've seen that recent kind of drop in ADP and kind of seeing what's going on there. It's not that he doesn't deserve to be up there, but that's where Hill, Kupp, a couple of those guys. I think once I get past those first two wide receivers, I think that's when you get to McCaffrey and Bijan territory. And I put Bijan right there with McCaffrey. I put Bijan in the sense that I would rather have Bijan because he's younger. I understand that, Christian McCaffrey's done it a million times, but you know what? He's also done it a million times. I want the younger running back. People who are afraid of rookie running backs, I say to them, nonsense. Ezekiel Elliott, rookie year, he was RB2 that year. Only behind, I think it was Arian Foster, who had some crazy season. The Saquon Barkley rookie season, people say, oh, well, Zeke was on a good team. Well, Saquon wasn't. He was RB2 overall in fantasy his rookie season on an awful 5-win Giant team. The only person who outscored him was Todd Gurley that year and his 7 billion touchdowns that he scored. Don't tell me that the rookie running back can't come in on a bad team with an offensive line that got Tyler Algier over 1,000 yards last year, with a coach who wants to do nothing but run the football historically. Like Bijan Robinson
ran the ball 559 times.
Bijan Robinson, I'm like I said, give me Chase Jefferson. They're right there. Give me Bijan, any of those three. I'm happy to start any draft with those three.
Good stuff. All right. This guy was sort of a tale of two seasons. 2 years ago, he was the wide receiver 2 overall in fantasy. Last year, he kind of fell off. Injuries kind of hurt him a little bit. But the question is, Ryan, Deebo Samuel, from a production standpoint, will be closer to his 2022 self than he is to his 2021 self.
Can I throw this one back at you since you're the 49ers person, Geoff? And I just want to pass on this. This is your team. I don't know what to do with San Francisco at all, man. And I ended up keep drafting Deebo, and I hate it because he just kind of always falls, like right in that area I want. But
I'm not taking him
more
where he
down
is.
than up.
Yeah.
I'm a little more down than up on him. I agree with what you said earlier, Joe. I really don't want pieces of that offense, that passing offense, who aren't named George Kittle.
Well, Kittle kind of fits the right bill, right? Because where he's going in ADP, it makes sense. He's kind of, quarterback proof in that sense. You've already seen it with different quarterbacks over the years. It didn't matter who it was. But the problem with Deebo, and we literally just did record a show about it today, we had 15 most frustrating players, and wouldn't you know it, he was on the list.
Yeah.
And it's because you just don't know who you're getting. You're getting the guy who was hurt all the time. You're not getting the guy who ran for 1 million times 2 years ago. Like, that's done now. Now that McCaffrey's there, that version of Deebo just does not exist. And he's going around the same spot as DK Metcalf, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper. I'm sorry, and Chris Olave. I'm taking all of those guys over him. It's not even close to me.
Yeah. As a Niner fan, I agree here. Do I think they'll be as bad as last year? No, but it definitely won't be as good as 2 years ago. I think it'll be closer to last year's production because he won't have that rushing ability. Now, I know 2 years ago, he was still good as a receiver. He still had, I think, 1,400 yards as a receiver, but I just don't see that happening again. And I'm not drafting Deebo until Ayuk and Deebo switch in ADP. Right now, Ayuk is going later than Deebo, and I think he should be going above Deebo personally. But right now, Deebo is the higher drafted one, and I don't want Deebo right now. I'd take Ayuk over Deebo.
God, I hate your receivers.
I do too, Ryan. I do too. Just take the defense, take McCaffrey and Kittle. That's what you do.
Yeah, that's it.
Do.
All right, last one here, Joe. This one's a little bit tough. We kind of mentioned a little bit earlier about his suspension potential, but by the end of 2023, Alvin Kamara will have the most fantasy points of all Saints running backs. Of course, we got Williams there.
He's answering this, holding down the throw up.
I'm gonna say fact, but I don't know if it's enough that it's gonna return his value. How's that?
That works. The question you fit the question perfect because
I think there's a caveat to it. That's my problem is if he gets 6 games or whatever, do you really think that Jamal Williams and Kendra Miller and all those guys are gonna hold it down for the whole season then? And then when he comes back, like it's gonna get ugly at some point. And wouldn't you know it? Also, Alvin Kamara was on that list of 15 most frustrating players. So it was Kamara, it was Thomas, it was Deebo. It's some really big names that people have won fantasy championships with. But he's also, 6-7 years in the league now?
Yeah.
Running backs are like milk. They have expiration dates. If you leave them in too long, it gets sour. And it's, not everybody's Adrian Peterson. There's some guys who can, buck that trend. I think Derrick Henry might be one of those guys who can because he's just such a freak physically. Nick Chubb is another guy that is just so unique and so powerful. But most of these guys, and I don't know, Kamara's another one of these guys where I'm just kind of out unless he comes at a really significant early discount. But again, you're taking a huge risk. So yeah, I think it's a fact he'll outscore the other running backs, but I don't know if necessarily that's, enough to get excited about.
Yeah, I think they'll be like really close in points, but
are
at the top and the other two guys right behind him. It'll be
because he catches so many balls too. That's big part reason why.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to some listener questions.
Go ahead. Ask me anything.
All right, a lot of these were specifically for you, Joe. So I'll try to.
So I'm going to take the rest of the evening off.
Ryan, you go ahead and take a nap. This first
You're
one
welcome.
here, first one's from Smoky Hell NFL, and he
Josh.
wants to know which non-Kittle player would cut the best wrestling promo, and then who would be the worst? So kind of a follow-up to that.
I saw this question again. I thought about it. I tried to put the work in today. I'm going with the Kelsey brothers as a tag team. I think, they have those vibes of kind of, because Travis Kelsey's kind of cool and, good looking dude. And then you have the wild, crazy Jason Kelsey. They're just hilarious together. I love the podcast. They crack me up. but it's kind of like old school Heart Foundation vibes. The two of them, I think that would be the way to go. I think those two guys, they're cutting a good promo. I'd like to see them cut a promo on the Road Warriors and then go out there and have a match.
That's a perfect answer. What about the worst? You got somebody that you think would be just terrible at it?
Yeah, Daniel Jones. He's like the least intimidating human on the planet, I feel like. He's just like, hi. Like
Poor Danny Dimes.
Like if you put him in a ring, like, you know, you get the jobber wrestlers who come in there where it's like you have like Brock Lesnar come in, you know, and then it's like, and then there's Daniel Jones, and then there's Daniel Jones just like, you know, he's like just kind of getting ready in the corner, and you're like, this guy's gonna get his ass kicked. Like that's Daniel Jones. He has that same look. Completely confused. It's gonna be a 3-second match.
Those are the best answers. I love it. Great answers, Joe. All right, this next one, Ryan, you can chime in on this one as well, because this one kind of goes, you know, with some of the stuff that we do here. But Lewis Hall, I'm sorry, wants to know, what's your favorite dynasty startup strategy as far as the draft goes? You productive struggle, win now, and then what are some of your favorite targets for your strategy?
Go lead it off. It's specifically for you. I'll follow up with my thoughts on it.
Say that one more time.
I said, since he says specifically Joe, he can start with it. But
okay, go ahead, Joe.
It's up.
You know, for me, I always want to be relevant now. I think sometimes people put way too much stock in prospect things in Dynasty, whether it be baseball or football or whatever. Draft picks or capital. Give me proven NFL talent. Now, that being said, I'm looking for talent that's going to be good for a 3-year window. And I'm willing to also in the first year of a Dynasty startup, if things are not, to me, first year Dynasty startups are about acquiring talent. So as the draft unfolds, you're just trying to acquire talent. Forget positions, forget all that noise. This is the best players available. I had a Dynasty startup that started last year where it was super flex. I started with Jamar Chase. I got Trevor Lawrence. And then by the 4th round, Deshaun Watson was still floating around. And I knew that was going to basically hurt me in that year, and it did. And that's okay. I ended up realizing the team was not going to be good enough despite having Devontae Adams and Mark Andrews. So I just flipped Mark Andrews for Kyle Pitts and Travis Etienne to a contending team before he got hurt. That was a good trade. And now I'm going in with Etienne, with Chase, with Bijan Robinson, because I had the 1-1 pick. Like, if you're going to suck, go suck bad. Like, go suck hard, go out and get the top guy, and then you turn it around. But to me, the first year startup is about acquiring assets. If it works out that you're also competitive, great. But as soon as you realize you're not, trade off any asset that you think you can replace easily or turn over. And that's how you all of a sudden in 1 year of a startup go from a bad team to the top team in the league for the next 3 years. That's how you do it.
Yeah, I like that. Ryan, you want to talk about your strategies?
Yeah, I mean, that was really hard to follow, but no, I'm very much follow the flow of the draft. Like, if the young players are falling early to me, I'm gonna go with maybe more of a productive struggle, even though I hate losing. I'd prefer to win now, but it's just like kind of like I just said, like you follow how the draft goes and you get the best players. And I don't care about roster construction, especially earlier. Like the earlier you do drafts, the less that matters.
Yeah.
If you do a closer season, it's a little bit different, but I just want to get the best players available, and I'm following how the draft goes. If I draft young to start, and I don't think I have a championship team, I might take some more flyers later and younger guys later than vets later. So I'm going to go with the way the draft goes.
And be like Howie Roseman in the rookie draft. Like, take capital, move back if you want to. Take capital you have, move up. If you see a player that you love, or a window of a couple players, and you can move, a pick for next year, a 3rd rounder or whatever, just do it, because you never know what next year's draft's going to be. You never know how those players are. Get the assets every year you like, and then throughout the season, you could always get those picks back by saying, "Oh, I've got a surplus of wide receivers. I'll throw you this for a 3rd round next year," and all of a sudden you've replaced that 3rd round pick that you traded. So don't feel like trading away the future is a bad thing, because you can always get those picks back. Continue to build assets. That's what you want to do. Get talent on the roster. That's how you win in Dynasty.
Yeah, I love it. Great answer. All right, this next one here is from Gerson, and he was in the chat. I don't know if he still is or not, but he texted me and said, make sure I ask this question. So I had to make sure I got this one on the list. But he wants to know, Joe, do you have any advice for someone that wants to invest in the FFPC and put some big money on it? He's talking 300 to 2K entries. And what would your advice be?
Look, this is there's a great chapter every year in the Black Book. And I'm going to plug it here because Billy Wazowski writes it. And Billy has won NFFC several times. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think he's got $300,000 in winnings in the last 5 years. So he writes that chapter because I'm a good football guy, but that guy wins it a bunch. So I want to hear from that guy how he does it. But one of the things that, in some of those drafts too, the salary cap format drafts is a different animal. So he writes about, doing those. If you're in snake drafts, again, different animal. To me, I think when you're in big tournaments or NFFC or big, high stakes leagues, you'll notice that, some people will approach it wrong where they take too many chances. I think the idea is to take calculated risks. And I think sometimes people try to be like, well, I'm going to just go for it, all this stuff. And, that's not always the way to go. Sometimes those boring picks, like a Keenan Allen this year might be a pick that turns out to be really good in a format like that. I think people have to understand that where, you are really focusing on good offensive ecosystems. It's something that Matt Harmon always talks about. And I agree with, it's focusing on that, focusing on, who are the players that you think could move the needle? And then as the draft goes on, that's when you start taking some shots. And then you understand, the offenses. You understand exactly how things are going to evolve. Do you think Quentin Johnson's going to eventually take over stuff? As Ryan was talking about, is Jordan Addison going to be a guy that's worth early capital? Zay Flowers going to, some of these rookie wide receivers, are they going to go ahead and take a step? Now, those kind of guys and hitting the right guy in the Kansas City wide receiver sweepstakes, those are the kind of things that can really separate you. Because when you're dealing with people who make those kind of big investments, typically speaking, they're all very knowledgeable and they put a ton of work in. So you're not going to beat them necessarily on work. You're going to beat them by being consistent and making sure that you're drafting a good team, that you're taking calculated risks, not just risks all the time for the sake of it. If this guy hits in the first round, I'm going to go be super, no, don't be super crazy the first couple rounds. Make smart, good picks. That's the best advice I can give you. And read Billy's work, because every year Billy writes about these high stakes leagues, and he's one of the top guys in that space. And I think everybody should listen to him.
Good stuff. Yeah, I know Gerson's a big DFS guy, and something that I always kind of bring up in those big tournaments is everyone wants to get the high upside guy. And, sometimes.
Do you know how many times I throw cash game lineups in tournaments and I cash? It's
yep.
all the time.
It happens all the
time. Just be good.
Yep.
Stop trying to be different. Just be good.
100% agree. All right, so let's get to our final segment of the evening.
Get ready for GoingFor2.com's Forgotten Fantasy Player of the Week.
All right, so Ryan had a one clue correct answer last week, so he let's see if we can.
Dude, I don't think I'm ever gonna get the one clue answer again. It was a perfect storm.
It really was. That was a great answer. But yeah, Joe, go ahead and give us your clues here.
Okay, it's a duo. I decided to change it up on you a little bit. I think
nice.
This will be fun.
Okay,
forgotten duo in fantasy football. The year is 2009. That's what we're going to go with. The year is 2009, gentlemen. It's a duo backfield. Would you like to take a stab at it, or would you like a little bit more information?
2000.
Oh, my God. D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan
It is not.
That's the easy
fun try.
That was an easy one.
I
went for
you go first. Mark Ingram, Pierre Thomas.
No, also fun. I think they were a little after that. I think a little after that, but in the same vicinity, in the same, you're getting close here. It was an NFC duo as well that went for a combination of over 1,500 yards together for this respective football team. It's fun. I got you thinking a little bit. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good. 9 rushing touchdowns between the two of them that year.
9 rushing, 1,500 yards.
Actually, excuse me, 8 rushing touchdowns between the two of them. All-purpose yards, 11 touchdowns. Excuse me, all-purpose touchdowns.
All right, I need more.
The NFC East. The NFC East.
2009.
One of them, unfortunately, just passed away not that long ago.
Oh, that should be a big clue, but I can't think of it.
Should be a big clue. The chat's starting to blow up a little bit. I like Jamie's question too. We got to get to Jamie's question there about who will win in a street fight before we close the show.
Yeah.
I'll give you another hint here. One was a little speedy guy and one was a big boy. Big, strong, strapping man.
Oh my
And
god.
He also was not a junior or a second, but the big boy was a third in his family line.
Holy crap, I am drawing blanks here. Oh, how about
The duo.
Marion Barber the third.
Yes.
And oh my god, who was the other one?
Yeah, you're close. You're close.
Oh my god.
what is
Come
it?
on.
Oh my god, who the hell is the other running back?
I'm drawing a blank on his
If
name
you've seen
too.
Wreck-It Ralph, Fix It Felix.
Felix
Oh my god, Felix Jones.
yes.
Felix Jones and Marion Barber. A little thunder
I
and
love
lightning
Marion
for
Barber.
you on a
They were
random
back to
Wednesday.
back Dallas Cowboys running backs. But back
Oh
to
yeah.
back weeks.
Last week it was who was it last week?
DeMarco.
Yeah, DeMarco
Oh,
Murray.
DeMarco Murray.
Yeah.
I was like, let me go back. Let me find a duo for these guys. See if
I
we
like
can remember. But Marion Barber, Felix Jones, that was a thing back in 2008.
Yep, absolutely.
2009 a little bit too.
Yeah, good pull.
I completely forgot Felix Jones existed.
Me too. That's why I figured I was like, well, you want forgotten guys? I'm gonna try to get you. I'm gonna try to succeed. JB's question, by the way, who would win in a street fight? Derek Brown, Debro, or Erickson? This is tough. A lot of people know this, but Erickson used to be jacked. Like he was like bodybuilder-ish in college. Like just like he looks like kind of like a skinny talking, but Erickson's a stronger guy. He played a little football. Derek is like a tougher, smaller guy like me. He's from the South, though. So I think it would be a good fight. I think at the end of the day, like Erickson would try to fight clean, but Debro, I think, would have that dog in him where he would go that extra, like that fight dirty kind of thing. I would beat both their asses, but they know that. That's why I keep them in line. So the answer is really me at the end of the day. But I just side edge to Derek Brown if it's like a street fight, but if it's like a clean fight, I would give it to Andrew Erickson because he's got the reach. So there we go. That's how it
Good
is.
stuff. Good stuff. Great podcast, Joe. Always love having you on the show, man. And I appreciate you slumming with us. You've been doing it now for a couple of years with us, and I really appreciate it.
Every year. I always try. Always past my bedtime. I don't care. I like to stay up and talk football. I appreciate you guys having me on. I really do.
Absolutely, sir. If you want to plug anything before we get out of here, plug the Black Book, plug your show.
Go buy a Black Book on Amazon. Do yourself a favor because it's not like everything else. You got amazing IDP coverage by Scott Bogman. Nobody has that. We have the best dynasty coverage in the world by Thor Nystrom. Nobody's better at college football prospects than that guy. If you want one book that's going to dominate all your leagues, if it's dynasty, if it's redraft, we've got chapters about strategy just for specific league styles, just for this year. And that's something nobody else is doing. Rankings are good. Quantified rankings are better. RPV will change the way you play fantasy football. And it's number one for a reason every year. Go check that out and, go support these guys too. Go give them follows everywhere. And, the people who are the independent football people who go out there and do shows every single week, like I used to do, on my own, just the way that, Geoff and Ryan are, support these people because this is what the community is really all about. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
Great stuff. And Joe is the consummate professional because right behind him there is the Black Book sitting right up behind his head there. He's
Product placement, gentlemen.
Product
placement. It's right by my beautiful bald head. I keep it right there on TV for everybody to see in the tight shot and the wide shot. There you go.
Good stuff. Ryan, what you got going on?
Same old. Find me on Twitter, Fox534. Find me here Wednesday nights. Find me over at the Rookie Big Board and Dynasty Big Board. Doing everything Dynasty and Debbie related over there.
Good stuff. As always, guys, you can find me on Twitter at Jeff Lambert77. And if you are in the Scott Fishbowl or if you are a Scott Fishbowl hopeful, go to my profile, click on the Discord link. We are literally running hundreds of mocks. I posted a picture on Twitter earlier today that I had over 1,000 notifications yesterday because of Discord and Sleeper. We have probably 100 current drafts going on, all on my Sleeper account. It's a nightmare for me, but I enjoy it. And
that gives me heart palpitations just thinking about that.
Seriously, I'm going to bed after that. That's a lot of notifications there.
yeah,
you got to be able to mute that or something, dude. You got to take care of that. It's bad.
Just delete the app.
Just delete the app. All right, guys. For Joe, for Ryan, I'm Jeff, and we will see y'all next week.